How's the real estate market affecting your investment?
Real estate is not a commodity.
Don't join the crazy parade.
Welcome to Market Talk with your host, Brian Roth, discussing today's real estate news, tips, and trends.
So I was talking to my neighbor the other day, and he tells me, hey, I named my wireless network FSBO for sale by owner. I just looked at him. I was like, okay. He says, yeah, I want to name it something go undetected by other people. Now, if you're new to real estate and you didn't get that joke, just give it some time and you'll get it. In this episode, I want to talk about working with for sale by owners, and just FYI, in the industry, we call it FSBOs. FSBO. So if you're new and you hear someone saying FSBOs, they're talking about for sale by owner, FSBO. Now, I can understand why a home seller wouldn't want to use a real estate agent. I think we can all understand that. They save commission. When you get the closing disclosure, you see all the credits and debits, and the biggest expense that the home seller has is the real estate commission, obviously. But, maybe they've had a bad experience with the real estate agent too, or they just don't see a benefit in utilizing a real estate agent. However, we know there are many benefits to hiring a real estate agent. In fact, we can compare not having a real estate agent to help us buy and sell a home to going to court without an attorney. But I understand why someone would want to sell their home on their own. I read a statistic recently at National Association of Realtors that said people that sell their home on their own get 32% less than had they used a real estate agent. I think that sounds a little high myself. Actually, I think that sounds a lot high, but I'm not sure. Maybe it is correct. One thing I know is that homeowners don't have the tools and the experience that a licensed real estate agent has to come up with a realistic price for their home. And sometimes maybe they'll use something like the Zillow Zestimate, and we know that that's just not accurate at all. In fact, Zillow went into the real estate business not long ago, and it didn't work out really well for them because they were using their Zestimate to purchase homes. At some point in your career, you're going to have a home buyer that's going to want to see a home that is a FSBO. And I would say most real estate agents try to stay clear of FSBOs. And maybe it's because we just have had bad experiences. You give them a call and you've got a buyer who wants to see it, and you call them up and you say, hey, my name's Brian, I'm with this real estate company. And before you can get anything else out of your mouth, they're like, oh, I'm not using a real estate agent. And I get that. They've probably had a lot of calls from realtors, and they're just tired of it. Your realtor's calling and see if, we can sell your house for you, and they've got it on the market on their own, and they don't want to use a real estate agent. So I understand, but I also understand from the realtor's point of view that, you're giving them a call to see, hey, I've got a buyer for you. Would you be interested in, giving me a commission? And honestly, most times when we get past the whole deal of, we know you don't want us to sell it for you, but I've got a buyer, that they're usually, oh yeah, come on, we'll work something out. Some real estate agents, they love, calling FSBOs because oftentimes the home is, way underpriced. So you can get into a home because people didn't know how to price their home. Typically you see it's either well underpriced or way overpriced. And that's just because they don't know how to price a home. I was talking to a group of real estate agents the other day in a class, and we were talking about for sale by owners. And it's funny that, we realized that I would rather purchase a car from an individual than a dealer, but I'd rather purchase a home from a real estate agent than a private homeowner. And then maybe it's because it's a bigger situation. You're talking about more money, the legal aspect of it, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong. And so personally, I'd rather have someone who knows what they're doing to handle it. But when it comes to cars, that's a whole nother story. I don't want to go on a car lot. I want to, buy it from a private individual. It's my personal belief, though, as far as for sale by owners, and you've seen, if you've been in the real estate industry at any amount of time, you see a for sale by owner sign come up, and it's not too terribly long, maybe 2 or 3 months, and you see a realtor sign come up. And every once in a while, you'll see a holdout that really holds out for 6, 7, 8 months, and then eventually you see a realtor sign come up. I was reading on National Association of Realtors website, 92% of homes sold in 2021 were sold using a real estate broker. So it's a small amount of people that actually do sell their home themselves. They may have put it on the market to sell it themselves, but eventually they call a real estate agent. And so with that in mind, know that that is a really good market to get into. You could spend your whole career focusing on for sale by owners and do really well, because eventually those people, and most of them, not all of them, are going to eventually call a realtor and concede. I want to share with you how to win a for sale by owner. In my career, I've worked with few people who had started off selling their home by themselves. In fact, one of them not long ago gave me a call and said, hey, I had spoken to him previously, but he called me and says, hey, I'm going to go ahead and let you sell my home for me. So I went out and I talked to him, and I found out that he actually had his home under somewhat of a contract. It was more of a handshake. They negotiated the price, came to an agreement, shook hands, agreed on where they were going to close at. The home seller was at the closing agent's office on the day of closing. Guy didn't show up. He calls the man up, the home buyer up, and he says, hey, man, I'm at the closing. Where are you? The guy says, oh, I changed my mind. Now, this guy, the home seller, had already packed his stuff up. It was in a U-Haul sitting outside his house, and he had quit his job. All because he trusted that this guy was buying his house. No contract, just a handshake. Now, I mean, times past, that was enough, but unfortunately today, even a contract, people will try and break. So know this, that the odds are in favor of you getting this listing, because it's just going to be really a matter of time before they're tired of dealing with people, because this is the kind of calls they get. They get a call about their home, and they'll say, hello, I'm calling about the house you have for sale. Would you consider renting it to me? That's the first call. The second call would be, hey, I'd like to do a lease purchase. Now, neither one of these calls are from people who could actually purchase the home or qualify to purchase the home. What we offer first and foremost is that we cut out those calls. They don't have to worry about those anymore, because we're going to make sure that they get a qualified buyer if they go with us. The next thing is that they're going to get a greater amount of exposure to buyers than they had. Now, in today's world, obviously, we've got a lot of websites out there, and you get exposure, but not the kind of exposure you're going to get from a real estate agent. Because when they sign on with us, we're going to put it in our MLS, and every single real estate agent in our MLS is going to have the details about the house. So when you call the home seller for the first time, you need to demonstrate some empathy for their situation and understand that there's a reason why they want to sell it themselves. And that reason could be that they're buried in their mortgage. And if that's the case, there's really nothing you're going to be able to do. Maybe give them a little advice, but there's really nothing you're going to be able to do as far as helping them out, because they may not be able to afford a commission at all. And I've seen that before, where somebody had only been in the house a couple of years. They didn't have the money to pay a commission, and so they had to sell it on their own, or at least try to sell it on their own. Now listen up. It's important that you understand the objective when working with a FSBO. You're not going to talk them into letting you sell their home over the phone, more than likely. So that's not our objective when we call. Your objective is to get a face-to-face meeting with them. And the reason I want to get a face-to-face meeting with them is because I want to be able to start to build a relationship with that homeowner. Because if I can get into that house and start to build a relationship with that homeowner, when they get to the point that they want to use a real estate agent, who do you think they're going to call? They're most likely going to call that real estate agent who they connected with, who they started to build a relationship with, who wasn't pushy, who wasn't trying to make them do something that they didn't want to do. So let's run it down. You're going to call the home seller up. You're going to introduce yourself. You're going to let them know that you understand that the home is for sale by owner and that they don't want to use a real estate agent. Then you're going to let them know that you have buyers who are interested in homes in that area, and you want to know if you were to bring a buyer to them, would they be open to providing you a commission? And it, maybe half of what they would have typically paid if they had listed it with you. If they say yes, then we're going to work on getting an appointment with them so we come in and tour the home. They may say, well, there's pictures on the internet. Pictures don't do a home justice. It really helps if I can get in the home, just walk through it, plus talk to you about how we're going to go about the process of me showing it when I do have a buyer. Now, if they say no, they're not interested, just point blank, what you could do is just keep following up with some mailers. That way, if they soften up, over the next few weeks, next few months, that they'll have been getting these mailers from you, and they may call you. If you get the appointment, when you get to the house, first thing you want to do, I want to walk around. I want to have a tour of the house. Never say anything negative about a person's house. Always point out the positive things in the house. And really what you're looking for is things that you can connect with this person on. So if I see something that has to do with fly fishing, or I have something to do with hiking or camping, and those are like things that I'm really going to be drawn to, and I'm going to start talking to them about that. And the whole objective is just to connect with them during this tour. Now, you're only going to connect so much. And sometimes people are a little harder to connect with than others, but you're just going to do your best to not sound fake, not sound off-putting, but to genuinely take interest in what you see and their house. Before you leave, you could offer to do a comparative market analysis for them. That way, that gives you another opportunity to come back to the house and continue to build on that relationship. I'd ask them for their email address, and I'd leave them with my business card. I wouldn't approach the subject of listing their home unless the conversation went in that direction. Again, the goal is to establish a relationship with them so that when they get to the point that they're ready to sell their house, they call you. Well, thanks for joining me for another episode of Market Talk Weekly. If you haven't done so already, I want to encourage you to subscribe so you don't miss another episode of Market Talk Weekly.